This GXCC powered by Dunlop Racing action is proudly brought to you by SPX Logistics, powered by Dunlop and driven by Bikers Warehouse. Round number 2 for the GXCCs, now powered by Dunlop, and an interesting situation. A brand new venue of Modimolle and a combined event where the clubs, regionals and national competitors would for the first time in 2021 be together. We open up the show and this is going to be a focus point on our juniors and our quads. The juniors went out in the morning session on the loop that had been used for a time trial by the big pro elite bikes. So a completely different scenario, but at least the kids had tracks to chase down. Dunlop was on site for the first time. Bonnet Fufur and Moto Cartel were there for our whole shots, and it was good to go for the juniors. The thing was though, a couple of the juniors were racing in our national categories, so they went out, like in the ARC, 2x2. The rest of the GXCC field had to wait for our junior competitors to go out onto the loop. The good thing was though, the track was now rutted up, churned up, and there were a couple of nice berms starting to form. That was going to be good when we started to send out the stacked field of the big gates. So our junior competitors for our nationals were made up of a couple of 65s and a couple of 85cc heroes. A couple of names that we knew well from racing in the GXCCs. Bruno Niebuhr was going to be racing nationals for the first time, as well as trying to chase down the win in the GXCCs. When the first official start flag went, it was going to be all about our senior 85s chasing the cheese. But remember, a couple of our key championship players were already out there racing in the national category. So there was a chance for a couple of different players to start to show their cards and see what they could do and try and taste a little bit of clear air. The track was made up of a lot of bushveld and sand, but mainly flatland section racing for the kids. The second gate was going to be our stacked field of our junior 85s, where we also saw different riders starting to show their hand. Don't get confused as well, there is a 65 out there racing, but also scoring inside of the 85s, as he's a little bit young to move up into the big wheels. The 65s, even though we had one or two riders out there racing in the nationals, the 65s once again giving us our biggest junior entry and would no doubt offer the tightest racing on their 2-hour racing format. With the 65s clear of the gate, we turned our attention to our future stars. The 50cc gate, and there's one guy that they cannot beat off the gate at the moment or on the track, and that is John-Luc van der Westhuizen. Almost tucked the front, getting chased down by Brula. That's Rainier Bellingham and Derek Milan. Those are the three kids from Mpumalanga and the three kids to beat on the tour at the moment. The rest of the 50cc field made their way out of the start chute, rounding Moto Cartel and Bonnet Fufur out into the field. For this round, we're going to kick things off with the biggest gate on the day. That was our 65cc Racing Juniors. Josh Spencer inside of a number 9. Up the road from him, Ewan Furry, and then Tyler Geordie. Geordie is starting to really become one of those tasty riders, and I think it's going to be a matter of time before we see a tasty top 5 coming in. Cecil Boddington was up the road inside of a top 6, trying to get the numbers on. And then a problem for Matty Mayer on the day. Remember, he should be a championship player in these 65s, so it is his first season on the 65s. Top 5 for him will still keep him in the championship hunt. Hanyu de Kock, who was almost untouchable at round number 1, dropped a couple of positions this time around, having to settle for a number 4 ride. Mackenzie Bam smashed it though. Top 3 for her, and she is definitely a rider on the up and up. She had good support from Motul on the day, and she is going to be up there climbing the ladder in the championship. Corbin Miller, one of his best rides on the championship in the last couple of seasons for him, inside of number 2 spot. But at the top of the charts, it was coming good. The J192 of Jaden Els riding out of the franchise company and CIT squad. He gets his big win at round number 2, which will boost his championship big time. Out on the track then for the 50s, John-Luc hammering the nail. He was the first to see the flag. That is his second flag-to-flag victory in 2 starts on the GXCCs, with Peter Mayer chasing him down in the 2 spot and Declan Richards walking away with the 3rd place. Caitlin De La Rosa walked away with 4th, her highest finish on the tour to date. Confirmation then of 2 for 2 for John Luke. Superstar Van der Westhuizen out front ahead of Mayer, Richards, De La Rosa, Labuskakny, Milan, Deploy and Ace. Flip the page and we start talking about the 65, confirming that Else is on the top coming out of round number 1, ahead of Muller, Bam, de Kock and Mayer, with Boddington, Geordie, Faree, Spencer and Pretorius rounding out the tasty top 10. Back onto the track then, and we start to pick up the action in the junior 85s. The tasty top 10 this time around, starting things out with the Pepsi Plastics Kawasaki rider. In the development side of the sport, Clayton Human doing a good job to break the top 10. Tyler Farrow, one of the top Yamaha riders on the gate at the moment. The C9 walking away with 9th position as well. Clarkey, who started the year in great form, unfortunately suffering some problems at this round. His bike just not playing the game at Modimolle. He had to settle for a number 8. That's going to drop him down in the championship standings. Chimolo Matsubuko got his 155 just off the box this time around, 7th place. And that is a nice steady development for one of our new riders on the gate as well, racing with us on the full championship tour for GXCCs. Round number 2 was a breakout ride for Matsubuko. John Bart Moritz was the first of the podiums then in the number 6 ride, and it was very close racing for our junior 85s on a track that really was a bit of a leveler this time around. Mitchell Fallon on the 140 got himself inside once again of a top 5. He is going to be dropping down maybe 1 position in the championship. He finished higher at round number 1, 5. He's not going to be happy with that. But it's early in the championship. Henry Jens van Rensburg muscled the J440 up inside of a number 4. He is so close to walking away with his first top 3 of the GXCC Racing Tour. And I do think he's one of those riders who's not far away from also jumping up into the senior gate. Luke Battersby, who, as I said at the beginning of the season, is a bit of an enduro racing star, is really good at turning the wick and getting through the gearbox as well. 3rd place for him. Franco Free and the famous J400 rocking his way inside of a number 2 finish. Watch out for him in the championship, but it was the J500 that bested him on the day. Watch out for this battle to unfold as we go forward into the rest of the championship. J400, Franco Free versus this man, the whole shot kid himself, who was out there racing club, regional and nationals. J500, Bruno Niebuhr, a flag. Once again, he is the kid to beat on this gate. Confirmation of Niebuhr out front once again. Should see him standing at the top of the championship standings as well. Beating out Franco Free, Battersby and Van Rensburg, with Fallon, Moritz, Matsubuko, Clarkey, Farrow and Human inside the top 10. Out on track then, and our superstars. These are the kids that are 1 year away from going 125. That's senior group racing. This is the senior 85s. Armand Hutting breaking inside of a top 10. You can see how the track did chew up on the day. Timmy Blake loved this terrain. Had his Vans Racing Husqvarna absolutely dialed in, softened up the suspension so it didn't get whooped out as well. Jandre Vermaak also had one of his stellar rides. He was in a fight with Timmy Blake most of the day, breaking out a top 8 finish come the end of play. Franchise company CIT rider doing a good job of it and finding improvements at every single round. Number 7 this time around for a top 6 finisher at round number 1. That's Raymond Language. So he's going to have to find a little bit of extra speed. It was a tough day out for most of the juniors. As I said, the track got really whooped out by the bigger wheels that went out on the time trial in the morning session. Johnny Luck, who actually had a very good run of things at round number 1. This time around, stays in the points, but lower this time around. Keanu Fisser, who was untouchable on last season's Junior 85cc gate, is dwarfing the Senior 85 at the moment. He'll be dying to get onto the 125 for next season, but for now, happy with the number 5 ride. Dwayne Conbrink, who just is the absolute perfect fit for the 85 at the moment. He's fitting into that sweet spot before he hits his growth spurt as well. 4th place for him will keep him super happy. Lucian Mayer also, he's got that dialed in perfect style, gets the shoulders high, he's got his frame absolutely perfectly upright like a mini Kenny Gilbert. 3rd place for him, that is a nice run. And then these are the top 2 riders on this gate at the moment and the top 2 riders to watch in the championship. Kurbis Bester, who is so good, also racing in the national championship as well as regionals and a couple of enduros. He walked away with a number 2 spot, only bested by the loose as a goose style of the J411 of Tommy Scales. Scales and his family traveling from KZN to race the full GXCC Tour, and look at that attacking riding style. Scales on top once again, and the championship is going to be Scales versus Bester for the rest of the season. Just outside of that then, third place and the best of the rest is Meyer, ahead of Combrink and Visser for the top 5. Johnny Luck stays on the box in 6th place, just ahead of Language for Mark, Blakey and Hatting. With our juniors clear of the gate, it was a completely different situation for our quad racers. They had a long wait as the schedule had been turned on its head. Normally the quads are the first to go out in the morning session with the juniors. This time around, they had to wait for the GXCC and the national competitors before they could roll a wheel. That meant their start time was going to be late in the afternoon, 1:30 in fact. So the heat was well up there, and the race had to be shortened to a 3-lapper. And on top of that, we had to move the start gate scenario. So everyone had a little bit of extra time, a little bit of more stress to deal with before they could kick the tires and light the fires and go racing for now what was going to be a 3-lap sprint. Off the gate on the Q1s, and the interesting situation that's starting to unfold. Keenan Hammond has got the good gate this time around and saw clear air. Hannes Simon, so good off the gate, and he got the pull with Rian Dick doing the chase down. But our winner from round number 1, David Stradum, a snap chain. He would have to recover, regroup, and chase from the back of the pack. In the Masters, back on the Raptor once again. It worked so well from at round number 1. Round number 2, pulled off the gate. Kobus Ferreira getting clear air this time around on the stacked Masters field. In the veterans, the 4x4, Peter Goosen got the big hookup. He saw clear air, but it was going to be a tough and challenging day in this whooped out terrain for the quads. Remember, this was the track that the two-wheelers had turned over 4 hours of racing on. Liesel Barnard also got the big hookup on the big Can-Am, seeing the Barnard Fafua Whole Shot and Moto Cartel turn number 2. That would see her chasing into the field in clear air until the race settled itself down. And then Big Johnny Horsforth. Also, that's 3 Can-Ams getting the 4x4 hookup, an absolute perler. But Heinrich Sonicus actually saw clear air out into the field, making an aggressive pass to see clear air. So that's the whole shots out. This is what went down on the track as we climb the ladder. Starting things out with the WOW class. The WOW is giving us a 6-rider gate. Everyone really battling with the terrain, and a couple of these riders going full stock machinery. Johan Grieling was one of those riders out there on the Honda. Thorny was out there on one of the older Bombardiers, getting the job done inside of a top 5. Trying to get inside the top 3, just missing out this time around. 4th place going to Henning Pretorius. Heinrich Sonicus, who saw a little bit of clear air in the early stages, but just started to fade backwards as the track got whooped out and rough. He had his quad set super high as well, meaning the center of gravity was a little bit higher than it should have been. Johnny Horsforth, consistent and rock solid as ever, brought the big 4x4 Can-Am home in the number 2 spot. He's looking good for some numbers on the page and will possibly be moving up into one of the age group categories for next season. For now, 2nd place. Johnny will take that with both hands. Thank you very much. So a new winner on the championship tour, and we saw him chasing inside of a top 3 at the opening round. But clearly, Sean Kutzer has been putting in the work between rounds 1 and 2, and possibly finding some improvements on his weapon of a KTM to climb now into 1st place. And that's a great journey for our WOW class. Remember, it's development, and if you can see the checkers, that means we've got a new winner on the tour. Congratulations, Sean Kutzer, for getting onto the top step. John Horsforth, rock solid, consistent as ever, inside 2nd place on the big 4x4, ahead of Sonicus, Pretorius, Fouchier, and Grelen. The quad ladies gave us a 4-rider gate. This time around, Judith Kruger managing to complete the race format and still keep her points on the plate. 4th place finish for her. Celeste Berger, who is great as well. We saw so much development. She got so strong towards the end of last year, and she even had time with her 3rd place to pick up and help out one of the downed riders along the way. Well done, Celeste Berger. High fives for you all the way around. Good pull off the line for the Barnard Fafua 4x4. Remember, last time around, Liesel Barnard rolled out one of her normal rear-wheel drive quads. This time around, she got the big dog out, got the pull off the gate, and walked away with 2nd place. But she was beat out by sheer speed and riding style. And I love how this woman is starting to develop into a real championship rider. Good run last year, great run at round number 1, even better run at round number 2. She is the championship threat this time around, as she's the checkers at Modimolle. After the race, though, we caught up with one of her championship rivals, Celeste Berger, to see how things went.
Yo, it was nice, but it was tough. And with the two-wheelers that went first, there was a lot of loops. So the hands will show it all. I did 2 laps, and I'm done. I'm klar. It's the first lap I stopped for someone, and he was standing outside there for like 2 hours with no water. So I lifted him to the pits.
Tough conditions for our ladies, but they got the job done. 3 laps for our race winner, Duplessis, 2 laps for Liesl Barnard, 2 laps for Berger, and Krücker completing 1 to stay in the championship hunt. Into our age group categories, and we rolled out a brand new class at round number 1. This is the second time they've gone racing. This is our quad veterans, where Davy de Vet brought his QCon Racing Honda home to a very tasty number 5. Strong off the gate, but Peter Gerson said this was one of his toughest days ever. Not just riding a quad, but ever in life. This was challenging terrain for the big guy on the big bike, but 4th place still keeps him well within the championship hunt. It was just the fact that the bikes went out before and whooped the track out completely. There was no respite for the quad racers. Nico Smit stays solid and consistent for the championship as he walks away with another top 3. 3rd place this time around, and Nico seemed very comfortable on the whooped out gnarly terrain on his Yami 450. 2nd place, and Francois Berger is definitely one of the guys that is championing this kind of terrain as well as this category. Last time around, he was racing in the Masters in 2020. This time, now a veteran, able to chase down a championship in his own age category. 2nd place this time around, and looking very strong on the numbers with 2 rounds counted. Now a new winner on the tour. Great to see the Swannies fully supporting the GXCC Championship Tour. We've got Stefan Swanepoel racing out in the Q1s, and Oom Piet, his dad, racing in the Quad Veterans. And now we've got a new winner on the tour as well. I love the fact that with the different kind of terrain, the different format of the event, we see different players coming into the championship rivals that will start to really unfold as we move forward into round number 3, 4, and 5 of the tour. Piet Swanepoel in the Quad Veterans takes his first checkers of the season at Modimolle for round number 2. Confirmation of Piet Swanepoel getting it done ahead of Francois Berger, Nico Smit, and Peter Gerson beating out Davy de Vet down to a number 5. That's the top 5 tasty Quad Veterans. In the Masters category, we saw really strong racing, and last year's standout champion Philip Boyce, who was in the dice in the early laps, had problems and had to drop down to number 6. That's going to hurt his championship, and remember, he's trying to defend that number 1 plate from last year. Jaco Krücker can always be counted on for bringing it home. Number 5 will also see him jump up in the championship standings. That's good numbers, as he is on one of the most stock quads out there racing on this gate. Cobus Ferreira, who had an incredible run at round number 1, brought out the big dog once again, but said he really was challenged in this kind of terrain. 4th place was the best that he could do, but still, he will stay in the championship hunt, only dropping down 1 position as we roll forward into round number 3. Fernando De Santos. The De Santi once again rocking and rolling. You'll see them in almost every single class and category of the Quad Racing Championship. 3rd place for Fernando also keeps him well in the championship hunt. Good numbers on the page, and really worked well in this whooped out terrain. His aggressive riding style and high stance helped him out to challenge forward. Xander Brankin, who had a terrible gate, in fact he was almost one of the last riders out of the gate, he still managed to make all those passes, stay strong, stay consistent. He is one of the younger guys in the Masters gate as well, so that definitely played into his wheelhouse. 2nd place, we'll see him jump up in the championship standings as well. I think the independent suspension on his bike definitely was a key factor at this round. But it's another De Santos, this time Roxy De Santos, putting together an incredible challenge in the 2021 championship, and the Quad Masters category is definitely looking like it might be a De Santos affair. We're going to see 1 or possibly even 2 of these guys standing on the top 3 come the end of this season. Here's a confirmation of our Quad Masters coming out of Modimolle, round number 2 of the GXCC Championship. Roxy De Santos ahead of Xander Brankin. Fernando De Santos, consistent as ever in 3rd place ahead of Cobus Ferreira, Jaco Krücker, and Philip Boyce, his lowest finish so far, in 6th. Moving forward then into our Premier classes, the Q2s, where Hannes Simon, even though he set a blistering lap number 1, the quad cried no more on lap number 2. Still though, he was good enough to finish 9th, and that's going to be important for the championship chase. You've got to get those points on the plate. Just up the road from him, getting a tag of a number 8 finish. That's one of the low finishes that we see coming in for Paul du Plessis, who is consistent. He does tend to get stronger towards the end of a championship and towards the end of a racing season. For now, though, it looked like the terrain just didn't suit his flat-out aggressive style, and 8th place was the highest he could run. That was our Paul du Plessis. Stefan Ferreira often has good and bad days. This was a bit of a bad one, but he'll take it because he was only one position off the box. 7th place will also see his championship start to come to life. Remember, he is rolling out in the Q2's brother is racing in the Q1, so Stefan will be relatively happy with that. After mechanical issues at the opening round, great to see Janeman Bezuidenhout rolling out on the second of the 690 hybrids. He'll be relatively happy with the number 6 ride as that bike is still in a full development season. Apollo racing on the Q2s, waving the flag for the Desanti this time around. 5th place, and so wild as you like. The Desanti don't hold anything back. It is all about go and get the job done, and great to see them ripping the bars off in 5th. After really having to put himself and the bike back together after snapping the chain off the gate, David Stradum, our round number 1 winner, put his head down. He had the fastest lap times off this gate on laps 2 and 3, but the highest he could finish was number 4. He'll be hoping the rest of the season goes more his way. Reinhard Swart, who was one of the riders that actually stopped and helped CD Goosen along the way when he went diving into the lake, still managed to get some time and fly his way up into 3rd place. Reinhard Swart, I said at the end of last year, is going to be a rider to watch in this championship, and his speed and consistency right now are proving me right. Rian Dick was dangerously close to taking a win that has been a long time overdue. He actually had the lead all the way through until the last couple of kilometers of the final lap where CD Goosen came past him. But 2nd place is a standout ride and a return to good form once again for Rian Dick. CD Goosen, who went down 3 times, one of them actually an overshoot into a lake, completely submerged, was actually stuck underneath his quad until 2 riders actually fished him out. And what a comeback ride for 2nd place at round number 1, 1st place at round number 2, and now your championship leader in the Q2s, CD Goosen. Totally spent at the end of that effort, and thanks to Reinhard Swart and Reinhard van Jaarsveld for digging him out of the ditch.
It was lekker. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of technical, a lot of bumps after the two-wheelers ratted that out, but I liked it.
I believe you went for a swim. Tell me what happened.
So there was a 90, and I thought the track went straight, and when I saw the water, it was too late. I put the bike sideways. The bike was halfway, but I was completely underwater.
Checking out the results then, CD on top. Goosen taking his win at round number 2, and that'll put him at the top of the championship charts as well. Rian Dick coming back into form with 2nd place ahead of Swart. Stradum, what a charge for David, getting himself up from very last to 4th place ahead of De Santos. In the Q1s, just 7 of the guys getting themselves inside the big numbers. Reinhard van Jaarsveld, one of the riders that did help out CD Goosen when he was completely submerged and in quite a lot of trouble, upside down and underneath his quad. 7th place for Reinhard, and thanks from CD's point of view. Christian Ferreira, once again on the box. So Christian is starting to put together a very solid championship at the moment. Points at every single round. 6th place is going to help him out for sure when we start to climb the ladder throughout the rest of the season. Stefan Swanepoel, Swanee, as he's known to his buddies out there, the C57, very good in the early laps, but problems towards the end of the race there dropped him out of what would have been top 3 contention, now dropping down to a number 5 finish on his Honda hybrid. Tinas Kutzer, one of the top KTMs at the moment, racing out. Remember, we used to see a ton of KTMs. There's now only 1 or 2 of them that are out there getting the job done. Tinas Kutzer walks away with his highest ever Q1 Pro result here at Modimolle. Into the top 3 then, where we saw Action Jackson himself, Haney Macau Jr., absolutely ripping the bars off and dwarfing that CRF 450. Remember, that is a hybrid, exactly the same development or very similar to Swanee's machine, and it really delivers a punch of power. Macau was only bested by 2 riders on the day. John Elwood, the guy that is traveling with Mikey Pentecost from KZN every single round, yet a slightly different look on his machine this time around. 2nd place though shows him that he is going to be a consistent championship threat every single time we go racing. Number 2 spot at round 1, number 2 spot at round number 2. But it was this guy, Keenan Hammond, who is the most aggressive quad rider in the country at the moment, somehow manages to hang on to that bike every single round we go around. It is a miracle that thing hangs together because he is so hard and aggressive on the machine at every single round we go out on. This was the most choppy, whooped out terrain we have seen in the last couple of years, and it didn't stop Keenan Hammond from throwing everything but the kitchen sink at it. In fact, the steering column snapping just moments before the finish line.
It was an awesome race. I love this type of terrain. The bikes made it really bumpy and it was tight, it was flowy, there was some rock sections. Definitely one of my favorite races over the last couple of years.
Something doesn't look lined up on your bike there.
Yeah, luckily the last 200 meters it seems like the steering column broke. Luckily it was like 200 meters away and I could just sort of maneuver my way home to get the win. Yeah, shout out to my dad for keeping the bike solid and making sure that it is looked after, and for my girlfriend for all the support that she gives me.
Confirmation then, 2 for 2. Hammond is on top, stretching away. Elwood, though, is close enough to strike a charge towards the end of the season. Macau, Kutzer, Swanepoel, Ferreira, Van Jaarsveld and Muller take us to the top 8. That's show number 1 for our juniors and our quads. Tune in next week when we get ready for the pro motorcycle category, racing out at Modimolle. All of this GXCC, powered by Dunlop racing action, is proudly brought to you by SPX Logistics, powered by Dunlop and driven by Bikers Warehouse.